Pillars of the Movement, along with Andrew Collins. I'm going to introduce our facilitator for tonight. He is a author, along with owning his own company that, what would be the correct word? Sets up.
We conduct town hall meetings. That's what we do.
Town hall meetings, social justice interventions,
Yes.
social justice workshops, by connecting with people, like putting together this panel through his company called Rap Sessions. He got his early career with, what was it? Third World Press as an editor. Then he moved on to be the editor in The Source magazine. I've known him for 13 years, and every year he continues to put together these panels wherever I'm at that I bring to my campus for people to hear, because they're dynamic, they're in the times of what's going on and what's happening, and usually the people on the panel have a message that is needed to be heard on college campuses. So tonight's facilitator is my friend Bakari Kitwana, and he will introduce the panelists to you all.
How's everybody doing tonight? All right, it's great to be back here, and shout out to Carlos Wiley for making it happen. We've done a lot of really great programming, man. Carlos has brought Bell Hooks here one year. He brought Mark Lamont Hill a couple of times. He's brought, I'm trying to think, Michael Eric Dyson, right? Talib Kweli, Blitz the Ambassador, and on and on and on. Yusef Salam of the Central Park Five. So Carlos has really been holding it down for a long time. I actually met Carlos. He was working at another university, University of Wisconsin-Platteville, and he was shaking things up out there. Shook him up so crazy that y'all had to get him over here. So I love working with the brother. He's just a really innovative, just an innovative programmer, and you don't find that as often on college campuses as you would like to. People that really work with the students, whether they're in season or out of season. Sometimes you have generations of students that are activists, and they're sharp and they're on point, and then sometimes you don't. And a lot of administrators can't adapt with that and insert themselves into the programming of the university in terms of what the students are here to learn. And a lot of times, truth be told, people like Carlos take it beyond what the university realizes. But let me stop before I get somebody in trouble. I'm Bakari Kitwana, and my company, Rap Sessions, we do town hall meetings focused on basically what we call difficult dialogues facing the hip-hop and millennial generations. We started as Rap Sessions in 2005 with a stronger hip-hop focus, but over the years, you know, as the conditions have evolved, we've had to adapt. And sometimes, like tonight, we don't have a hip-hop artist. Usually we have somebody on the panel who's an artist, but not this time. So what we want to try to do tonight is to talk about the issue of policing and police accountability and how it's evolved since 2014 when it was in the news on a daily basis and really captured the imagination of the entire world. But in my opinion, we still haven't gone far enough. So I want us to talk about where the cases have gone with the mothers in terms of getting justice in the case of their sons, but also where the overall movement has gone, because it seems that it's not on the front pages anymore. But what we want you as young people to understand is people are still out here fighting, and we still need your help and support on the ground wherever these issues are happening, because that's just what it's going to take to make change. Right now in Ohio, where I live, we have an issue on the ballot called Issue 1. And Issue 1 is basically looking at how do you begin to remove people from prison who are nonviolent drug offenders, people who are primarily drug users. And it's been interesting for me to see this, and as I thought back when I first started working on that issue, that was like 2002, and here we are in 2018, just starting to really see, some movement at the state level. And again, just like the policing issue, you got what's happening at the state level, and then you got what's happening at the federal level, and you got what happens at the local level. And when you got to work through these levels, one, the states have different laws. It just makes it harder to fight. It's harder to fight against. So I think that it's been interesting to see something that we really started, and then people before us, going back into the 60s, also working on the prison issue. And then people before us going back into the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s working on this issue around policing. So democracy is people love it, but it's hard to get things done sometimes. And we have to figure out strategies to be able to change things when we know they're wrong, rather than just go along with it because that's the way it's been. So what I want to start out with, and then I'm going to introduce the panel. I just want to give a couple of statistics to help kind of situate where we are from 2014 until now. We've had in 2014 of December, President Obama convened the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing. They released their first report in May 2015. By May 2016, only 9 states and cities had adopted these guidelines. Meanwhile, there is the Vera Institute of Justice. They put out a study in 2017 that said, and this is important because I think that there is a lot happening, but because, again, it's happening in different places and it's not a consolidated place in which you're able to see this, it's hard to see that there's movement, there's progress, and there are a lot of resistors, and the resistors are in power. So when you have people in power that don't want to see things change, and again, in a democracy, you have people that can be obstructionists to the change that people want. So, again, it's a longer story. So, the Vera Institute of Justice, they put out this study that showed 34 states and Washington, D.C. Had enacted 79 bills, executive orders, and resolutions between 2015 and 2016. That's a lot of activity. In 34 states plus DC, 79 bills, executive orders, and resolutions. Another statistic that they pointed to and the federal, the President's Task Force pointed to is that there are 18,000 police departments in the United States, each being governed by their own rules. So just to give you an idea of what we really are up against. Let's see. Lastly, I should say, we've seen a couple of successful moments where folks are getting some response to the resistance in Chicago recently with the what's the brother's name in Chicago? What's his name? Laquan McDonald, right. You saw that there was, the officer was charged in that case. Meanwhile, we see many other cases where the officers aren't charged. Yeah. And so we want to point to a little bit of both. In California recently, we saw the bill signed by the governor, again, saying that police officers now in their state, you have to, the records of misconduct are public, as opposed to some of the Bill of Rights in various states hide the records. So you can be an officer who has an incident of misconduct or sexual abuse or whatever, and you can just go on and work somewhere else. We had a case like that in our state of Ohio, and I guess we're going to get into that a little bit later. So these are just some of the things I wanted to point out. And so most recently, I say that to say, the Washington Post, this is another development since 2014. We discovered that the federal government does not keep statistics on police killings. So the Washington Post decided they would begin to keep statistics. So in 2016, they found that 963 people were killed by the police. In 2017, 987 people were killed by the police. In 2018 already, 788 people have been killed by the police. So I just wanted to kind of start us out there, and then I will introduce the panel and jump into this conversation. I think I covered everything that I wanted to. Is that setting us up good enough? Because we got to get down the road, because once we start getting into this, it's a lot to cover. So I want to just help us kind of get down the road a little bit. Okay, so let me introduce the panel. We have at the end, closest to me, Samaria Rice, and she is the mother of Tamir Rice. And Samaria has been just a great organizer. It's been amazing to see these sisters go from just being regular, everyday people to really inspiring so many of us. And so Samaria, most recently, she started the Tamir Rice Foundation, and she's building a community center that's in Tamir's name that she'll tell y'all about that. So that's kind of where she's focused now, but she's working on a lot of other things. You'll see as you search her name on the internet, you follow her on social media, she's constantly on the issue. Next to Samaria is Miss Gwen Carr, and Miss Carr is the mother of Eric Garner, and she is a retired subway operator. I'm fascinated by subway operator. I'm always fascinated by this, because I'm just picturing you behind that the controls there, but has become an activist. And I think this is what happens when these things happen. Systems aren't set up to respond to it, and so she has become very outspoken on the issue, and most recently, earlier this month, is now the author of the book This Stops Today, which she's going to talk about. And on the end is Andrew Collins, and Andrew is a former police officer in Benton Harbor, Michigan. And he wrote a book with another young man called Convicted. And Andrew, I guess I'll let you tell your own story. Okay. But I met Andrew in February. We did an event together, and I said to him, a large focus of their book is on forgiveness. It's him and another young man. They wrote this book together. And I said, we really need you out here talking about what's really happening. Why is there such a divide? And what can we do with what you know to have a greater impact than what we're having? So Carlos had the vision to say, we need a police officer, former police officer on this panel. And so I said, well, this is a great opportunity to bring all those forces together. So here we are. So welcome to the panel. Okay, I want to start with Ms. Rice. If you can, just a couple of days ago, man, that was just a couple of days ago, it wasn't even a week ago. Yeah. You hosted a screening for The Hate U Give. Can you talk about that and some of the overlap with your son's case and just, some of the other things you're doing in the community these days?
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. I am Samaria Rice, the mother of Tamir and the founder of the Tamir Rice Foundation.
Uh-oh. What's up, Carlos?
I just did a screening of The Hate U Give, and the author, actually, Angie Thomas, she reached out to me about a year and a half ago, and she wanted to reference a little bit of my story in the movie. And also wanted to get permission to use Tamir's picture. I don't know if any of you guys seen The Hate U Give. It is a must-see. It's very emotional. It was not a dry eye in the house, and it also brings anger as well. But, my story, basically, Tamir was shot. His sister did not witness his shooting, but she did show up on the scene of the crime. She was the third person on the scene of the crime. The two police officers, then his sister. She was basically handcuffed and forced to watch Tamir die. So again, Angie Thomas just wanted to reach out to me to reference that part of the story, and that's it for that part.
Okay.
It's just has some likeness to it as well.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you.
It has some likeness to my story, far as almost being the witness of her brother's death. So I don't believe she wanted to offend me. So before she even put the book out, she wanted to let me and one of my attorneys know this is what we was doing and things like that. So that was great. Yeah.
Samari, you have come to become more and more involved with the activist community, and a couple of weeks ago, man, it just seems like that was it was not a month ago. It was a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
The officer who shot and killed Tamir
Yes.
was recently hired by another police force in Ohio, and you and other activists kind of mobilized around that. Can you talk about that a little?
So I was in D.C. when I got the call from my attorney, and he was like, call me back right away. Timothy Loman just got a job offer in Baylor, Ohio, which is 2 hours away from Cleveland, where I live at. The news spread it quickly. Me and my team, we generated a letter for, no recommendations for him to send over to the chief of police. It went viral on Instagram and Facebook to call in to the mayor's office and the police department to tell them that they're making a big mistake. They need to reconsider of hiring Timothy Loman. Even the people down in Bel Air County was not happy. They was reaching out to me like, Miss Rice, you coming down here? I'm like, hold on, y'all, wait a minute, let me get my thoughts together. And from all of the pressure from the media, from people calling in to the mayor's office, a couple celebrities picked up the letter, like I said, off of Instagram, Sean King, Jesse Williams, Charaje, and just from all of the pressure, Timothy Loman rescinded his application. So I was happy about that.
I think that what was amazing to me about that moment was how fast you responded, and you put out that
letter.
That letter. That's
Yeah.
right. And I think that I was devastated. I remember when I first heard,
Yeah.
and but you were just so strong, and you were on it, and you were just like,
Yeah.
And I interviewed you, and you said you talked about the activists.
Yeah.
And getting activists involved, and you were talking about you're going to go down there.
I was going to go down there and have a conversation with the police chief if he didn't come to his senses. And one of the reporters that I did a report with, they thought I was going to be leading a protest. I believe that also kind of scared the police chief because, again, they don't want us to come down there and make them uncomfortable. So they quickly... he came back to his senses, and now I'm hearing that the community down there really do not want that police chief to be the police chief no more. So they're getting a petition to try to get him removed because he's another corrupt person. So yeah, so that's what I'm hearing now, which is great.
And you said a couple of things when we talked. You said we got to make the comfortable people uncomfortable.
Yes.
And you said that you wanted to make sure that when we call on the activist community support,
Yes.
they come. Can you talk about how that experience has been for you in the past?
Well, I work with quite a few activists, but they seem to always just be there for me, being angry about Tamir and being angry about black and brown people being killed. They just really be there for me. I do a lot of work with Black Lives Matter, and we have a white ally group called Surge that's in Cleveland. So I work a lot with them and just supporting me and helping me stand up when I can't really stand up. Almost just not so much being my voice, but just being there for me to give me strength where I can speak and I can stand up, because it's not easy. It's not easy.
And Ms. Carr, if you can, your book just came out. Why was it important to you to have a book to represent the story? What do you feel? Was there something that wasn't being told that needed to be told?
Yes. First of all, I want to say hello to everybody, and I'm so glad that you came out to hear our story, because it is an important one. And the reason why I wrote the book was to bring about awareness. Awareness was brought about when the video came out when my son was murdered, but everybody just don't get it. And I just wanted to put it in my own words, what this movement is about, why I have to keep my son's name alive, what we can do to try to prevent this from happening over and over again like it is. And the reason I named the book This Stops Today, not because the police have stopped killing our children, our boys and our girls, our men and our women, but because us as women, us as strong women of these boys and girls who has been murdered, we are going to stand up. We're not going to step back. We are going to do something about it. And when I say we are going to do something about it, I mean that we are going to push for changing of laws. We are going to visit our legislators where the laws are made, because we got to tell them that we put them in there and we can take them out.
When you, I saw an interview that you did recently, and it was a CNN online conversation, and I just remember being struck by a couple of things. One of the things they talked about was the Hillary Clinton wrote the foreword.
Yes.
And the other thing that they talked about, you were talking about how you became active and why you thought it was so important for young people to be active. Can you talk more about that?
Yes. Well, when my son was first murdered, I didn't know what I was going to do, because for a mother to lose her child, it's the most painful thing that she will ever go through. And at first, I wanted to retreat. I wanted to go and take to my bed and just wait until this terrible nightmare was over. But you know what? It was never over, because I never woke up. So now I just decided I have to do something. You know, I'm a very religious person. So I used to pray every night. I asked God to tell me what can I do or what should I do about this. Because when something like this happens to you, the devil gets in you very big, you know, about what you should do about this situation. But I prayed about it, and he just seems like came to me and said, well, are you going to lay there and die like your son, or are you going to get up and call his name and, you know, lift up his name and let people know who he really was, and he wasn't just a news story. So I decided to turn my mourning into a movement and my sorrow into a strategy.
Ms. Carr, can you talk some about the process in terms of there was a Department of Justice investigation. There was a discussion about it. It didn't seem like it really was going anywhere. It somehow put the local police to stop from doing anything for like 4 years. Yet this man is still working. Can you talk some about the details and what's happening in that process?
Sure. Well, we all know in the beginning we was waiting for a decision from the grand jury, and to add insult to injury, there was no indictment. Okay. The federal department, they took him up and they said they were going to bring something like criminal charges, and they were going to investigate. See if they had enough enough evidence to bring, civil rights charges. Okay, this was 4 years ago, and as we know, the administration changed. And with this administration, I didn't expect much, but I kept pushing. I'm not gonna, just because it's a different regime, that I'm just gonna go back in the corner. No, because I don't care who is in office, this is supposed to be a democracy, and we're supposed to get justice where justice is due. So now, they didn't know what I was gonna do, so, and I kept pushing. We went to the CCRB. The CCRB said they had enough charges, enough evidence to charge Pantaleo with obstructing Eric's breathing and putting him in that chokehold, and all they needed was a file number from the NYPD. Well, lo and behold, they wouldn't give them a file number. Now, so they thought I was keeping quiet. So it came the day before the anniversary of the 4th anniversary of my son's death. The mayor puts out a letter. He wants me to come to a press conference. Oh, we're going to move on your son's case. The CCRB, we just gave them a file number. Why the day before his anniversary? Because they just don't know what was in my mind. They know that I could do sneak attacks. So, anyway, and they says, and Sergeant Adonis, she was the sergeant who was on duty at the time of my son's death. She didn't try to de-escalate the situation. They said that the NYPD was going to move forward with the charges on her. But at the press conference, they thought this was going to placate, that I was going to be pleased with this. No, I wasn't pleased with it. I said, first of all, what you doing? You're trying to play me? So I said, don't play a player. So I says, not only Pantaleo, not only Sergeant Adonis, I want all the police officers who was involved in my son's death to stand accountable and to get fired, get them out of there, because they give the police department a bad name. Don't throw 2 police officers at me and think that I'm going to be satisfied, because I'm not. So right now, they're moving forward with the 2 police officers, but I'm still in their face about the other dozen police officers who lied on the police reports, who said things went altogether different than what they did. The ones that pounced on my son, I want them all out of there, and I'm not going to be satisfied till they're all gone.
You recently, I think last week, there was a documentary screening was it in Queens?
In Queens.
Yeah, and there's a councilman who was there, and there's the documentary is about your son's case, or it's just about the issue itself?
Well, it was geared towards my son, but it had other issues in there too.
Okay.
And then they had 2 retired police officers who told the story and told what should have been done, what wasn't done right, and they just put it out there raw of everything that the police officers did wrong in that case. And even in the documentary, you see a police officer who has another young man down. He's on his face, and they're kicking him in his head and punching him in his head, and it's just disgusting, despicable what the police officers do to us, and then it's just swept under the rug. So this is another reason why I had to write my book and try to get everybody involved. And we can't wait until these things happen to us. We have to prevent them from happening to us.
Yes.
And Ms. Carter, the councilman, is it Rory?
Rory, yes.
Right, like, what has been your relationship with him? Have you found support from, elected officials? Like, what have those relationships been like?
Well, Councilman Lanceman Rory, he's been very good. He has implemented the chokehold bill. From the beginning, he was asking me if I would come on board with him because he wanted to introduce the chokehold bill. So, I have been working with him, And now he wants to run for the DA in Queens. So him and I, we had a long conversation. We went to lunch, and he was asking me if I would endorse him. So afterwards, I told him I would think about it, but you know, as a person, I think, you know, then he told me what he planned to do if he is voted in as the next DA in Queens. And I said, I said, it sounds so good. And you know, I said, a lot of times politicians, they do a lot of talking. I said it right to his face. I said, they do a lot of talking to get elected, and when they get elected, I said, everything changed. I said, but now, as I see you, I can see you being the next DA of Queens. But if you get in and you start going left like these other politicians, I will get on TV and I will blow you up.
Okay. Samaria,
Yeah.
I want to come back
Yeah.
to you.
I want to say one
You
thing.
wanna jump in?
Also working with, I call them millennials or organizations. I know in Cleveland, the organizations put together a petition
Okay.
to get Timothy McGinty out of the office. Timothy McGinty was the prosecutor in my son's case, and he was more of the police attorney than supposed to be for Tamir, as they always say, oh, I'm gonna do what I'm supposed to do, Miss Rice, and we're gonna get these officers locked up. He basically just lied straight to my face. He was more a defense attorney for the officers. When you're talking about Timothy Lowe and Frank Brownback, they never got cross-examined, nothing. It's just like they gave them a slap on the wrist, and everybody seen my son was murdered in less than 2 seconds. And his case is still at the Department of Justice. I have not heard any information about it because y'all know who was in office. Okay, and that's why it's important that we, you know, get him up out of here because he is really ruining America. Okay, it's already ruined, but he's making it go down more and more and more. So just working with some of the organizers, and you know, like I said, they gather petitions. I think they had over like 200 or 300 petitions to get McGinty out of there. Also, if y'all don't know it, y'all are able to investigate the prosecutor, the judges, get their background. If they don't serve a purpose, don't vote for them. And if they're not doing right, get them out of there. You are allowed to investigate them. I didn't know that. Like your councilman, you can investigate them. The judges, the prosecutor, like these are people that's handling everyday lives and cases, and some of them not doing right by the law. You know, you got brothers and sisters on the bench, and I thought that was what's the word the people use when brothers and sisters or family members work together? What's the word? Somebody tell me the word. What is it? No, what's the word?
Conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest.
No, it's the conflict. It's a conflict. So how you a brother and a sister working in the Justice Center and y'all both judges? So it's all corrupt in the system with the government and stuff. And that's why it's important for you young people to, you know, try to make some change, hold people accountable for what you want to see and stand up for what you believe in. You know what I'm saying? That's the only way this is going to work, and we have to do it as one. We can't be all divided. We have to do it as one.
Samaria,
Yeah.
in Cleveland, as well as in some of the other cities, there was, in Baltimore, I know, and also in Ferguson, they had the Justice Department put out an investigation on the police.
Yeah.
And you guys should, if you get an opportunity, look these up online. It's amazing. Some of this stuff will just absolutely blow your mind, and this stuff is happening inside of the United States.
So mighty funny you say that. Department of Justice has been to Cleveland, Ohio 4 times. And during the 4 times, during the 3 times,
Justice Department in the city of Cleveland
Yes.
as to how they're going to revise things, right, to reform.
Yeah, well,
to
I'm
reform
hoping they're
the
gonna
police.
revise it, but I don't really know. I mean, 4
Right.
times already, and you
Right.
ain't getting nothing. This is the first time that a federal judge has been involved. As the family, a victim, and some, like I said, some community people, we wrote a letter to Judge Oliver, handing him our recommendations with this letter, stating that we need business and we will want to come, we will be up in his federal office in his judge chambers to see him if he don't put these recommendations in place. So it's called the CPOP plan, and it was developed on behalf of the consent decree. And like I said, it's just the CPOP is how we want the police to engage with the community. So we put together some recommendations, and we hoping that they get implemented in there. Yeah. So
I want to get Andrew into
Okay.
the conversation a little bit.
yeah.
We know you in the hot seat, but we gotta get somewhere, man. So I'm glad that you agreed, to join us, and I hope you're gonna, be able to just give it all to us. Can you tell about your own story as to what brought you to writing this book with Jamal?
First, thank you for being here. Google tells me that 13,700 students live on this campus, and tens of thousands of students are enrolled, yet there are empty seats here, and that is concerning to me that these two are here at your disposal, and you chose to come. So thank you so much. I think you should give yourself a hand, because change doesn't come unless we confront the issues, unless we educate ourselves about the issues. And I doubt that either of these two woke up one day and say, I want to be public speakers. So I just commend you for sprinting into the storm. And it must be just so hard to relive this over and over. They are, in many ways, the victim of this system. And I, in many ways, was the offender, the one doing wrong. So I stand before you completely vulnerable, if you will, that I know that's who I was, and I'm doing what I can to make those changes. I lived within a broken system that I didn't know was broken, I'm very careful. I try to be careful when I come to places like this to say whatever comes out of my mouth is never an excuse for what I did. I was a police officer from age 21 to 25. And at any point in my career, I was a young man. I was a man, and I had choices to make, and I chose wrong many, many times. But just to take the personal brunt of it without speaking into the broken system in which I worked in, the systemically racist system in which I lived and worked, would be a disservice to what's really happening. And I'm not just one story. I'm one of many stories of dirty police officers. I had a very ambitious career. I started police work because I grew up in a house of domestic violence where I watched my mom beaten on a weekly basis. And one night a police officer showed up and he brought peace to my home. I was always real little when this was happening, age 4 to 7. So I could never do anything to save my mom, if you will. But this one night, this police officer shows up. He wasn't mean. He wasn't aggressive. He was just there, and his presence brought peace. And I thought from that point on, that's what I want to do. I want to bring peace to people's lives. So that's why I got into police work. I started at a department called Benton Harbor Police Department. Benton Harbor is 92% African American. I grew up in a small village in northern Michigan that is 100% Caucasian, 100% white. So I had zero training through the academy on how to engage in a different culture other than completely white. I had no training in high school, learning about just what has led to the tensions between minority communities and police officers. I was just telling the ladies earlier that I was down in Birmingham earlier this year and walking around a block, a city block that is now an entire monument to the civil rights era, and I was heartbroken that this was the first time in my life I was learning about these things. I knew from a 35,000 feet standpoint, I knew that these things had happened, but I had never heard the details in which I had saw when I was walking this block. And it broke my heart that our education system doesn't teach these things to us, and that the academy did not set me up well for going to a predominantly black community. Again, none of those things make what I did okay. What did I do? So I was very aggressive towards drug dealers. I could not stand drug dealers. I watched drug dealers dealing to their mothers. Their mothers were their best clients. That really bugged me as a young police officer. I watched a community, older people in the community in their 70s and 80s would grab me and say, man, I just want my city back. And I'd ask them, like, what does that mean? Tell me what that means, because I'm not from here. And they said, before the drugs infested the city, like, we could be on our front porch. I can't safely sit out here anymore. I want these guys off my block. So I was like very righteous indignation got me into chasing drug dealers around. But what I learned quickly was narcotics officers, in my experience, are kind of like the wide receiver of the football team, very arrogant, very boastful. We like to put our accomplishments in the other officers' faces, and I lived right into that. And what started as I want to make this community better quickly led into this is all about my career advancement, which then led to, oh, I can line my pockets with dirty money, which led to, if I plant dope at this crime scene, I'll get a better, quicker solution than if I do this the right way, which led to stealing money from the city, which led to being caught with crack and heroin and marijuana in my office 4 years, 4.5 years after becoming a police officer. So if you'd have told 21-year-old Andrew that he was going to end up where he did at 25, I'd have told you were crazy. There's no way. And I liken it to when I started smoking cigarettes when I was 13 years old. It tasted disgusting, but it felt wrong too. And then the next time I smoked it, it still felt wrong. It still tasted wrong, but it felt just a little less wrong. And then by the time I was 18, it's just who I was. It was part of my identity. I was a smoker. And that's what this corruption did within me, is I started small, and as I got away with the small things, it led to full-blown corruption. And I see that, and I saw that within the justice system in which I worked. I saw other officers do the things that kind of taught me how to do these things. Again, with that asterisk, that's not an excuse for what I did. That's not why I'm sharing that. But I did not come to Benton Harbor and say, I want to be a dirty cop. I didn't wake up one day and say, I'm going to be a dirty cop. I woke up one day and didn't recognize myself anymore. I had fallen down that path so quickly. And it's very easy to do as a police officer because you're guarded by the laws that you are told to uphold. Who polices the police?
That's right.
So I don't know how many times I was in courtrooms where we go into the back of the chambers, the judge's chambers, with the judge and the prosecutor and the defense attorney and myself, and the prosecutor and the defense attorney would be fighting over what felt like little details about the case, and the defense attorney would say, if you just drop that supplement, my client will plead guilty. And I'm sitting there knowing, like, I don't have a very good case. I didn't see anything. I just kind of think he did it. And I would watch them hash it out, and the judge say to them, let's get this figured out and stop wasting our time. Outside of the presence of the defendant, whose life is in the balance. And in every case, 4 white people decide what's going to happen before we walked into a courtroom where an African-American male, usually in my case, was about to be convicted of a crime, was about to be told how to plead guilty, told how this is better for you, you'll be out sooner. They weren't taught about the collateral consequences, that, you know how hard it's going to be to find a job now? Do you know how hard it's going to be to find support from your family again? Like all those things that we don't think about. We think the time that you actually do, the fine that you have to pay, those are the only consequences right now. There's all these other things.
I want to ask you something, because I want to push us deeper into this conversation, Andrew, and that is, you talked about the being a corrupt officer and seeing other people that were corrupt, but still you were arrested and you were charged, you were convicted, and you were sent to prison.
I will.
So, why do you think that we see officers willing to fight corruption, but we don't see as many officers willing to fight police killing people.
Yeah. That's a great question.
Like, in your situation, there were other corrupt officers. You talk about them in your book.
Yeah.
There were other corrupt officers that you knew, right? Some of them got away with it, right? Or judges or prosecutors telling you how to entrap people, right? You talk about all this in the book. Why is the blue wall that they call it, right? Why is it so different when it comes to do police officers not see a police officer killing someone who's unarmed and innocent? They don't see that as corruption too? Like in the case of Mrs. Rice and Officer Lohman, he is a police officer in Cleveland. He kills her son, and then a few years later, he's getting a job. Why don't police officers?
Yeah. The image I have in my head is when the first time I heard another officer on my training shift say, I'm going home tonight.
Mm-hmm.
We're going home tonight. And I've heard this mantra throughout. It wasn't just the Benton Harbor PD, it was the Michigan State Police. I heard them say this, we're going home tonight. If it's between us and them, and who is this us and them, there wasn't like, hey, let's talk about that. It was the bad people in us.
Right.
We're going home tonight. So there was always like this edge about you that every encounter you had, there was a reason to be fearful. There was a chance that you don't go home tonight. And so as I watched Tamir in that video, you know, I hear those officers saying to each other on the call, hey, a person potentially with a gun saying to each other in the car, hey, we're going home tonight. And almost like there's this brotherhood of blue or brown, whatever they wear, that says it's us versus them.
Right.
And that we've been living in that culture for far too, it's so unhealthy in policing that it is us versus them. And until that's broken, we're going to keep seeing this stuff because people are operating out of fear.
But I feel like even in the case of the corruption though, the officers, you hear about these cases all over the country. Police officers who are corrupt. In Baltimore, there's a big case recently. In New York, there are cases all over the country. Chicago, where you're getting officers who are robbing drug dealers, they're doing this, they're doing that, and they're locking them up. The blue wall of silence isn't prevailing in that arena. So I'm just kind of curious, what are the dynamics that you see? I don't know if you have an answer or not.
I think what you're dealing with is perception, too.
Yeah.
That I don't know that any of us can perceive that it would be okay for me to plant drugs at a crime scene.
Right.
But if I tell you after I shoot an unarmed man that I feared for my life because I saw him reach for something, there's so much now that's ambiguous, that's not just cut and dry. And I think that's why these sneak through, because there's nobody from the police world standing up saying, no, that was wrong. They gunned down a young man for no reason. You know, in Tamir's case, why pull up right next to him if you believe this young man has a gun?
Right.
Why not use your training,
Right.
get behind some cover, and engage him verbally?
Yes.
Why, so why are we not talking about those things? Was it all out corruption? Did they head there saying, I'm going to kill Tamir Rice today? I doubt that. But they said, we're going home tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And that's harder to say, is that corrupt or isn't it? Is it a corruption? Go ahead.
But also, Timothy Lohman was mentally unstable. He failed the sheriff test 5 times. His mother had to come and get him on a gun range. Cleveland Police Department failed to look at his HR report. His father was a U.S. Marshal and was friends with the Cleveland Police Department. So it is ways that they slip through the crack. And he was never supposed to have been a police officer, never. Just because his father was a U.S. Marshal, he slipped through the crack, and now I have a dead baby.
Yeah.
Ms. Carr, do you have something you want to respond to?
I just wanted to bring that up, Andrew, like how it's easy to slip through the crack on that note, you know what I'm saying? And they also get promoted too, like when they kill a black or brown person, They get promoted and like, I don't understand, like, how do they get promoted to go to stay keeping their job or being a lieutenant or sergeant or whatever else they want to promote them from? Like, I just been seeing too many promotions and no convictions.
Yeah, that is so true. In my son's case, the officer who's supposed to be on desk duty is making a six-figure salary. Each year, he gets an increase. And I'm saying that, you know, I'm putting a lot of pressure for him to be fired. So he's padding his pension so that when he leaves, he's going to be all right. How do an officer make a six-figure salary on desk duty? The officers who's out in the street fighting crime don't make that type of money. But each year, he is making more and more money. So I think they are just getting him ready. But I don't want to see him walk away, get that good guy letter. I want him fired. But I think they're going to let him quit. He's going to quit before we finish with it.
And y'all know who paying it, the tax people.
Yes,
So if y'all tired of paying for settlements and murders and stuff, y'all know what y'all gotta do.
And when the family gets settlements, which I got nothing, my daughter-in-law and the children, they got the money from my son's settlement. But when you get settlements, it doesn't come out of the police officer's pocket. They are not liable for 1 penny of that money. It comes from us. That's who pays. I think if we start hitting them in the pocket, we would have a different ballgame.
Also, applying insurance on the police, so the doctor can have insurance on them, the teacher can have insurance. What makes the police department acceptable, like they don't have to have insurance? Don't y'all think that police should have insurance on them? That would help them think about before they pulling the trigger, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, so whoever wanna take that idea, run with it, take it and make it a bill for me. Okay, insurance on the police started like $10 million a bullet, so you get it together, you know what I'm saying? Seriously. I mean, you can't put, it's never gonna be enough money to bring our children back, but they need some insurance on them before they can think about it. Like, why do we have to pay for it?
You mean like a doctor has malpractice insurance?
Yeah, malpractice, and the teacher has a malpractice, and psychology.
Yeah.
You know, all the doctors and, you know, even the lawyer, everybody got insurance with the police.
Yeah.
Have you asked them about that, Andrew?
For you, I can.
Yeah, I think they need to have some insurance on them because it shouldn't be the people with their tax money paying for settlements or paying for their misconduct. Yeah.
Should we go to the questions, Carlos? Anyone on the panel have something they want to say before we start taking the questions, or should we just jump into it?
Oh, no, I was wondering, was you done?
You want to hear some more from
Yeah,
Andrew?
I was, yeah.
Okay, all right, I got another question for you. I have another question for Andrew. Can you, in your book, you talk a lot about the cozy relationship between the prosecutors and the district attorneys and I'm sorry, the prosecutors and the police. And you saw that in your case and in other cases, right? Why is that not, when people are talking about police reform, why do you think that that's not something that comes up as an issue?
I don't think that people see it. You know, if this is the first you've heard of, you know, police and prosecutors being cozy, picture this, if you will. We finished a trial, and it was a tough-fought trial, and then we all, prosecutor, defense attorney, and myself, went to celebrate for beers. This is not hypothetical. I'm not asking you to imagine. Like, this happened. We went to this little corner dive bar, and we cheers to one another, said, you know, congratulations on a hard-fought battle, and you know, to the victors. And we all got drunk together. You know, and I'm 22, 23-year-old Andrew, like, oh yeah, this is how the system works. Now, there wasn't a whole lot of people from the community that cared about police and prosecutor and defense attorney relationships who were in that bar with us. So I would just say it's probably just a matter of raising awareness that these relationships are formed
Right.
and that they are inappropriate in the conflict of interest.
Yeah.
I had a prosecutor I could call and say, hey, I've got a search warrant, meaning I want to go into someone's house and search for drugs. And she would say to me, is it the run-of-the-mill one? Meaning I've written a ton of these. Is it going to read the way it always does, or is there like extenuated circumstances? And I would say, no, it's a regular one. And she said, I just put my name on it. Wouldn't even read it. Had no clue. And I lied through the whole thing. Trying to get to who I wanted to get to. So, I mean, these things happen all the time.
Ms. Carter.
Yeah, when you talk about the DA and the police department, that's why if you look it up, myself and other New York mothers, we went up to Albany, which is our state capital, to get Governor Cuomo to sign an executive order for a special prosecutor. And what this does is when these senseless killings take place of our unarmed children, it takes it out of the hands of the DA and puts it in the hands of the state attorney general. Because how can the police police the police? So, it's a Band-Aid, it's not law, but we are trying to make that law, and we hoping the rest of the nation follows, because we need legislation on this, because far too many police officers are getting off, because the DA is looking for the police officers to do their work. So how, if it's your children, how are you going to police your children? How are you going to punish them, extensively, and you want to protect them? So, this is why we felt like we did get it out of the assembly last year, in session. This year, we're going to try to bring it all the way up so we can make it law, so that we could have a fairer playing ground with that.
We ready for some questions? You guys are ready. Who wants
Also,
to
I
be
just
first?
want to say one more thing. In Ohio right now, we're trying to get a bill, two bills, transparency and accountability on the ballots. I know they have passed it in California, and that's what we've been working on probably for the last couple of weeks now. We have a meeting coming up November 17th to meet with one of the legislators, but I'm hoping that, they take this serious. Ohio is a racist state, and we all know that, but I'm hoping they take this serious, because they're gonna have a hell of a fight on their hands, I'm telling you, because the mothers around the world and in Ohio, we are not playing with them. So, if we're gonna be in Columbus, that's our capital. That's our capital, and we're gonna be kicking down doors. Yep.
You guys have questions to the microphones? Anyone have a question? Can you come to the microphone, please? This one over there as well. Thank you. Don't be shy.
Okay, so
Oh, you got two. We got her going on right. That's all right. Go ahead, right here. You go ahead.
okay. So frequently I try to explain these injustices and corruption to family and friends. They tend to either not understand the severity of it or even defend the police. How can I convey the reality of these injustices to people who just seem to never listen? Or do you have any advice for feeling discouraged / that this is falling on deaf ears?
Who wants to answer?
We were talking about this a little earlier, that some people, if it doesn't affect them, it didn't happen. But don't let it knock on your door before you decide to take action. None of us is infallible to, this behavior. I mean, the black and brown is more susceptible to it, but it can happen to any of us. So we got to try to prevent it. We have to try to get groups together and show them the importance of trying to get community police relationships. Like, I disagree with the police officers always, especially in New York, riding around in cars, not getting to know the communities. You should know the people who you are policing.
Yes.
You should form a relationship with the people who you are policing. So we do have to take one step at a time, and if you are serious about it, one or two could span into a whole group. If just get a couple of people to listen to you.
Can I add to that?
Uh-huh.
I would add to that, I don't know exactly what the saying is, but it's something along the lines of you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. And so not that you have to step back from how passionate you are about it, but when we get into a space where we're just yelling at each other, I've had to argue with my family and say, I was corrupt. I'm telling you, it's correct. I'm telling you from the inside. Don't tell me these things don't happen, right? So like, I get your frustration when you know the sky is blue and you walk away from a conversation saying, man, they were pretty convincing that it's purple. But I thought it was blue before that conversation. So just as sweet as you can, as gentle as you can, show statistics, show, as much, the more informed you can be rather than it just being your opinion is where change will come.
Yes.
Hello, Ms. Carr and Ms. Rice. I'm sorry, I'm very nervous right now. But first of all, I'd like to commend you both for coming out here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But it's very traumatic to come out and talk about something like that all the time. So I appreciate you guys for coming out. And I have two questions. The first is for the two mothers. And it's how you cope with the pains of losing your sons, because that's something that's very heavy to carry. And then the question is for the second question is for all three, because you guys are on both sides of the situation. We had a project last year, and we discussed whether or not we should obliterate what currently is the police force in the United States, or hold the police officers accountable individually.
Good question. Two good.
To your first question is how do we cope with this? Well, I'll say for me, I am a praying person. I have to lean on that everlasting arm, because if it wasn't for that, I know I would have lost my mind. And I just thank God every day that He let me keep my mind, He let me keep my strength, even with all the tragedy that I have gone through. He showed me all the praises and all the gifts that He has given to me, because there's a lot of people who's my age who can't even get out of bed, who wears glasses, who have high blood pressure, who has heart trouble. I have none of that. I don't even wear glasses. So I praise God every day, and I try to walk the walk that He has. Maybe this is the path that He set for me. Maybe this was my calling, this was my awakening, even though it was a cruel awakening. But sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. So this is part of my healing, to talk to other people. Prevention, this is what I want, prevention. I don't want to hear of another case where the police officers have killed someone's son for no reason, someone's daughter, someone's father or mother. It's just become a real issue with me.
Well, for me, it is through the grace of God, and I just really try to keep myself busy. I do have 3 other children. Tamir was the youngest of the 4, and I'm just busy these days with the other children and the grandkids. Tajay recently just graduated high school, so I have 3 high school graduates right now. After just being there for them during, their brother's death, I still had 2 kids in school that I had to get out of school and stuff like that. And just, coming out, talking to folks in the community. The Tamir Rice Foundation is actually going to be a youth center, Afrocentric youth center for children.
You also have a community of sisters who are, y'all support
Yeah,
each other.
and we support each other. It's not a group that you want to be in, but it is a sisterhood that's very relevant, and we don't want no other members of this group. So it's just important to keep doing the work that we do. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the second question.
I asked that based on a project that we did last year on police brutality, where we had to discuss it, that we either proposed obliterating the current system that exists now, or making changes to this one and like holding the officers accountable individually.
You know me, I'm somewhat of a radical. I say dismantle the whole system and start from scratch. Because it's definitely not benefiting us if we're black and brown, but for the white privileged people, it's not going to benefit you in the long run either, because if America go down, we all going down. So I just say that we need to get on one accord, and we need to, get our white people out there, get up in their face, they listen to y'all. They will.
We can't just hold one officer accountable. We need to hold all who is guilty accountable. Because you're guilty if you stand by and you watch an injustice and you do nothing about it.
Absolutely.
So we have to hold everyone who is involved, just like in my son's case. I say everyone. They want to discipline 2. No, I say 22. All who is involved.
Yeah, and I would say it would be great if we could dismantle and restart, but I don't know how we would restart without the racist. I don't know how we would restart with a clean mind, without implementing some of the stuff we're already doing. And in the process of dismantling and readjusting, if someone's like in my house robbing me, then who do I call? But I think we need to go back and look at when we went from peace officers to law enforcers and say, what happened there and how do we switch that mentality back to serving and bringing peace rather than enforcing all the laws and giving us reason to mess with people? Great questions.
Thank you.
You up, sir?
Yeah, is it on?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I wanted to say that we're very blessed that you have come and shared the stories with us, because I think that that's how we learn. We learn from each other. We learn from you, and going through your suffering and your pain to share it. Thank you very much for that. And I thank God, the ancestors, that He allowed you to show up and be that. My question, though, is that it's only been mentioned in the last 5-10 minutes, the issue of race. It seems to me that when we start looking at the statistics of young men being killed, that there's certainly a disproportionate number of those young men and women are people of color. And so just a comment on that. And one specific question to you, officer, and that it seems to me that you said you'd had no training, but it's been my observation that a lot of officers have come out of being vets, have been in the war in Afghanistan and Iraq, where they have treated people who were different from them, who were foreign from them, in a way that they come home and try to treat people the same kind of way. And and you're dealing with Afghanis and you're dealing with Iraqis in a way that you have life and death over them. But when you come home, we're talking about America. We're talking about American citizens. We're talking about folks here. And it seems to me that there should be different rules of engagement.
Yeah.
But a lot of the officers tend to maintain the same rules of engagement because it's the only training they have. Is that part of
I
your
think that's a
observation?
fair assessment from people who I worked with who were veterans. And I would add to that, why is it, your first question, why is it disproportionately men and women of color who are being gunned down, killed by police officers? And I think it's over-policing in those communities. I came to the city of Benton Harbor a month after a civil unrest riot. where a black man was, there was a car pursuit, and he died in the process of the vehicle pursuit, and there was a lot of tension that led to that, and it sparked off riots, right? So when I came in, I was told in the academy, 90% officers never draw their weapon in duty, outside of the fire range. The first day, my sergeant was yelling, "Get your gun out! Get your gun out!" at a scene where 20 people were fighting each other, throwing bricks at each other. So very early on, it was, again, that's us versus them, right? This over-policed, everybody needed to be fearful because I was working, I'm going to change the city, so every vehicle was going to get stopped, and that leads to more tense interactions, right? Across 1 mile across the bridge from where Benton Harbor is St. Joe, which is 90-something% Caucasian, and these things don't happen. You don't see vehicles pulled over on every other block, but if you go into Benton Harbor, it's very clear that this is almost a military state. Not only are Benton Harbor police there, but and this is 4 square miles. It's not a big city. You have not just the white cars with Benton Harbor on the side. You have the brown cars with the sheriff's department. You have the blue cars that are Michigan State Police. Every corner you go down, every block during the summer, you'll find someone being harassed by the police. But the police would say, "We're just doing our job."
Yeah, I think that's one of the great things that's lifted up in those Justice Department analysis of Ferguson and Baltimore and Cleveland. They get really deep into interviews with people in the community about what's happening, on the street. So I think that I don't know if you've read those.
I've read a couple of them.
I figured you had. I figured you had. So I think you had another. Was there another part to your question?
That was it,
You were asking about race.
just the racial component.
Yeah. What is the okay?
Well, it could be common because we spend a lot of time talking about it, and I think that we live in an atmosphere, we live in a culture that has been based on white superiority since its inception, and that what part of that is something that needs to be addressed even before we address the specific of police brutality. We need to address white superiority ideas. That's all.
I said it earlier, I said it's a disease. Racism is a disease. And when you have people like Trump in office and Jeff Sessions, which they think that making America great again is
Making it white.
making it white again is, that's not gonna work. I mean, we're here, okay, this wasn't even our land in the first place, it was the Indians' land. So until they recognize, the logistics of it, like they stole it, like they stole everything else, until they wake up and realize what's really going on, or somebody make them uncomfortable, you know what I'm saying? We won't be able to get the change that we're looking for. We gotta get those people out of office.
Yeah.
And we gotta get some new people in the office that's for the people. The people, we rule America at the end of the day, you guys. Just let y'all know, we rule America. So I don't know how Trump got in there. I'm sure he got in there on the lie because nobody voted for him. Okay? I'm sure we did not. Okay? I'm sure they messed up the ballot somewhere in Florida like they always do. Ohio is a swing state, okay? So I know they got Ohio because Ohio racist. But in Florida, they cannot be the two that makes him win. I'm sure around the globe, around the 52 states, nobody really voted for him. So again, y'all kind of see how this system is corrupt. Oh, that's 50. Okay, 50.
Well, DC should be.
So, I'm sure it's corrupt. And
Can I add something to that?
Sure.
I would add to that, my fellow Caucasians, those of you from Caucasia, which is not a place, learn your heritage. My mom says we're Irish, but that's because she likes to drink and fight. So learn out where your heritage is. The whiteness dominates everywhere it's at. White culture dominates everywhere it goes. And right now, as we hear these things, we're feeling a little fragile. So don't shrink back from this conversation. thank you for being here and continue carrying it on. Because Samaria said it earlier. She said, white people, get out there and say something because they'll listen to you. And I don't know if y'all caught that, but still, unfortunately, people listen to a white voice from a man who is white, who's done really awful things before they'll listen to a black woman who has been offended by the system.
Kavanaugh.
So we got Is it right? No, but it's still where we're at. It's our truth.
Next question.
Absolutely.
First and foremost, I feel honored with you two's presence, and I'm thankful for all three of you coming here. I have a question for all three of you, more specifically Mrs. Rice. So there's a video out right now that I saw a few days ago of a police officer stopping two boys in Ohio. He got a call that they had a gun. It was a video. In the video, the officer lectures them on how dangerous that is and how he could have killed them, and how he prides himself in being a bad hombre who would have killed them. A lot of people are praising this video for the cop not shooting them, but it is honestly very disturbing to me.
It's very disturbing.
You saw the video?
They actually, did I talk to you about it already? Oh, so Mike.com, I'm sorry, I got the question. Mike.com called me and wanted me, not Mike, AJ Plus.
Okay.
Called me and wanted me to comment on it, and what I told him is that they're congratulating him for what that's his job to de-escalate the situation. But also when you approaching a child, you can't be harsh like you want to be with an adult. Like, he should have been more sympathetic, more compassion in his voice, more calmer. He should have made the children aware of some of the stories if they wasn't aware, in a much softer, calmer voice, not ridiculing him, intimidating a child. I mean, that's a kid, for Christ's sake. I mean, I just don't understand where it comes in play. That's still an adult, whether you're in a uniform or not. Why are you talking to somebody's child like that? Okay? That does not make no sense. That's not making no sense to me. That's not making no sense. And I was bothered by it. I'm still puzzled, like, how he think he did a great job, or this is what he's supposed to do. You know, you don't get patted on the back for doing your job. This is what you're supposed to do. Thank God he used his brain that day, because we could have had another Tamir up there, you know, like Tyree King. You know what I'm saying? Let me just say this. It doesn't matter what a black or brown person or even a white person do. It doesn't result in a death sentence with a bullet. You know, one question I want to ask for the officer, when y'all in training and things like that, how come y'all not trained to shoot in the leg or the arm? Why do y'all have to shoot to kill? Like, I don't understand that. Like, if they would have shot my son in the leg or the arm, he'd still be here. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not understanding, like, when the training process comes, are y'all allowed to shoot in the arm and leg?
No, the training that I went through was center mass. And you don't shoot to maim. If it's serious enough to pull your trigger, your goal is to destroy what you were pointed at.
Oh, that is horrible.
That's not my words.
Yeah, no. You telling them what they
That's
train.
from the academy. If
Yeah,
it's important enough to pull your trigger, you should be looking to destroy what you're pulling the trigger towards.
Yeah, so I'm just glad that officer used his brain that day, okay? You don't get that a lot. You get the reaction first, and then they thinking later. It was a close call, I'll tell you that. It was a very close call. And I don't know why they praising him. He has not done anything good.
We've set the bar too low, right?
Yeah.
We've set the bar at congratulations, you didn't shoot a young black man.
No, they should be trained to preserve life and not just take life because
Yes.
you have a life.
Yes.
Life is something they can't give this back. All the I'm sorry's or you have my condolences cannot bring your loved one back. So that should not even come out of their mouth.
Yeah.
Next question. You ready?
Thank you. Was you done?
You had another one?
Yeah, I was done.
You welcome.
Hello, good evening. It is an honor to meet the both of you, and I'm so sorry for your loss. My mother lost a child, and the child wasn't killed, but I know that it killed her inside, so I cannot imagine what it is like having your child taken away from you, so I'm very sorry to hear that. I had a question for the police officer. I wrote a paper last semester on like the policing of Black women in particular, and and the paper was talking about like, you know, how people with disabilities are killed because like oftentimes police officers think that they're dangerous, especially if they're deaf or if they have like mental illnesses or things like that. And another part of my paper talked about sexual assaults and the police force. And basically the paper was saying that they really don't report it, and basically people don't report it because, you know, cops already get away with killing people, let alone sexual assault. So I was wondering, like your experience with those type of things within the police force, and what are ways to help address that, because y'all, like, people get sexually assaulted at traffic stops and everywhere, and it was something that I was like wondering if you came across when you was an officer.
That's a great question, yeah. Yeah, and just to clarify, again, I'm not an officer. I know. I'm on y'all's side. Yeah, I saw, so there's two things I think of. I think of an officer bringing a man out of a crowd that we got called to, and he's got his arms bent very unnaturally behind his back, and he slams him up against my squad car that caused a dent that I had to explain. And then he says, "You saw that, right? He swung at me." And I said, "No, I didn't see anything." And he said, "Come on, man, you know it's us versus them." Now the us versus them is the street officers versus the administrators. It's us versus, there's always this us versus them. There's always an enemy in police work. Unfortunately, that's the culture. So I think of that with your question is he was asking me to cover for him. It's us versus them. He knew he went too far. He knew he abused that man, and he was asking me to cover for him. So I know there is that culture of the blue curtain. And then I also think of a gentleman who was married, who had condoms in his locker. And I asked him one day, I said, "You planning a visit from your wife?" And he just laughed and said, "You know how it is." And I was like, "No, I don't know how it is." And that man ended up being charged with rape and hung himself the day he was doing court. Now this is another man I worked with in the same department where I had my fall. So yeah, I mean I would love to read what you wrote, because I'm sure you are way more educated than I am. So yeah, thank you.
I think another part of what you were asking was also about people who have mental illness as well, right?
Yeah, because
Had you encountered that at all?
I mean,
Disabilities or mental
yeah. We had no training.
I was reading that like they're like basically the number one target.
I had no training
Okay.
as to how to encounter somebody who might have a mental disability.
Next question. Are we running out of time, Carlos?
No,
A little bit, take these ones that we have right here? Okay.
Hi, this is a question for Ms. Carr. So with the death of your son, I feel like that was the first instance of the movement where we actually saw it on videotape, and it wasn't a case where it's like he said, she said, like the police lies like about it. We all saw it happen. We don't like, you can't dispute it. Like we all saw it happen. But with that, like, first of all, I have two questions. How did you like react to that being like shown on a national scale? And with the filming of like police brutality and police killings, like, do you think that it's ultimately a good thing that we are spreading awareness with like documented evidence, or do you think we have somehow like desensitized ourselves to like trauma in a way, or do you think it's ultimately good or bad?
The first part of your question said that say that one more time.
So how did you react to your son's death being shown on like a national scale? Like how was that as a mother?
When I first saw it that morning that they played it, because the Daily News had come to my house and told me that it would be on in the news at 5 a.m. in the morning, and then we would see the video at 7 a.m. in the morning. And just like they said, I did see it, just like they told us we would see it. And when I seen it, I just like lost my mind. I just went, you know, it was like me watching him die right there. And that took a real toll on me at the time. In fact, I've never looked at the whole video. You know, and when I'm in a space where they're playing it, because I know that they have to play it to show awareness, I either go out the room or I'll displace myself, you know, like try to put myself in another mindset, you know, to keep from seeing it over and over again, because it's like a reoccurring nightmare for me. But the second part of your question, yes, I know they have to show it. I'm glad that they are showing it to bring about awareness, to show people that this is really happening, that this is not just us always complaining. It's something that's happening every day. And this is something that we all need to address, not lay back like it's just a news story. Oh, that poor man or that poor woman got killed. Oh, isn't that a shame? No, it's not that it's just a shame. We have to do something about it. It should not have happened, you know. So we got to get up out of our comfort zone and do something, and not just sympathize, but empathize.
I'm just curious as to what you think the role that toxic masculinity plays in police brutality.
Wow, that's a concept I haven't talked about before. So can you explain to me the concept a little bit so that I make sure that I know what we're talking about?
Yeah, so toxic masculinity is basically, I don't know, the best way that I can think about it, that I describe is like football. It's an excuse for a lot of men to get together and be toxic, to be violent, to show aggression, like to excuse behavior that we normally would not excuse. I don't know if that's very clear.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then could you ask the whole question again to make sure I answer it correctly?
So what role do you think that toxic masculinity plays in police brutality?
Yeah, I think it plays a much bigger role than anyone would have known, because I don't think anybody that I ever worked with would have been even conscious of that theory, of that idea, right? That this is just who we are, right? If somebody elevates the danger, then we were supposed to elevate more, right? We're always one step above what's going to happen on I can't remember what it was, a continuum that we used to study on. Okay, if they're just a peaceful protester, you don't come in with batons. You come in with a pressure point. You know, like there was this idea that we always were one step ahead physically. And I remember, you just jarred something in me. I remember the sergeant who interviewed me. After I got the job, he said, "Congratulations, don't get your ass whooped." And I said, "What?" He said, you're a young white boy. This is a hard city. You get your ass whooped one time, nobody will ever respect you. Don't get your ass whooped. And I think that speaks a little bit, at least, into what that is. It's one man to another man. Don't let your tail get handed to you. You better be a man. So.
Yeah, because I'm just curious. I've made the observation that a lot of these killings were done by white males. Like I know there recently was something in the news about the female that went in and killed a black male, but most of the cases we hear, and I'm assuming that most police are men, so I was just curious.
Yeah, they're white men and they're disturbed.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Very good.
We got a question.
Okay.
I just want to thank you guys for coming out and talking to us. I have a question for Andrew. As an African-American male in America, I'm scared. I'm scared of law enforcement. I'm scared of messing up. I'm scared of taking the wrong turn. And as for officers, I know they are scared of me. I know they're scared of minorities.
You're a big dude.
I guess my question is, how can I, or people like me, people black and brown, and different minorities, how can we not act out of fear? And how can the police departments not act out of fear as well?
Yeah, get to know each other, right? I've got to know you as a man before I see you as a black man, or as something that could potentially hurt me. So if I'm patrolling your community, how about I get out of my car just arresting somebody. To where the only time, what's your name?
Ben.
What is?
Ben.
I'm sorry.
Benjamin.
Benjamin. All right, Ben. There's a lot of weird acoustics up here. So I can get out and be like, hey, Ben, right? You know, how you doing, man? And I can go do whatever I was going to do. And now all of a sudden we're not quite as scared as each other, right? Like I know, you know, Ben goes to Penn State, and like I know a little bit about Ben's story and maybe his family story, right? It's the community and the police doing this thing together. And we see that in some communities. We see some efforts in Dallas with that, with some really good ideologies around community policing, to uniting the two together, coffee with cops, so you can come and have coffee and donuts and ask any question you want of police officers, like, you know, so engage in things like that to where your community of police officers know who Ben is and know that Ben's, and why should you have to do that, right? Why should a black man who gets pulled over have to put his hands on the steering wheel and not be fidgety? That, you know, why should that have to happen? It shouldn't have to, but that's the reality we're in right now, and hopefully your generation makes it better. But short answer, get to know each other. Because when a man or a woman gets to know another man or another woman, it's much harder to see each other as enemies or it's something to be scared of.
Do either one of you want to say anything about that? This question?
Well, I would say,
fear is what he has.
yeah, I know, I would propose to maybe go to your, either your city council and make a request that the police should, have some type of formal or meeting where they meet the community. That could be a one way to maybe not get over the fear. The council people are supposed to help engage that conversation with the police, what is it, the safety department of the police department. So I would say maybe go there first and maybe have a group of y'all. And I would say that do that across the country. Yeah, just a way to just say, hey, we here, we want to try to meet you when you meet us and not be scared when you come to our community. And don't be stereotyping us when you come to our community. You know, just because we walk around with our pants sagging and the way we are don't mean that that's means for pulling over, frisk, and search. But also know your rights, you know what I'm saying? If you're in a community where you don't know the police and you're not comfortable, I suggest that you find a way to get to know the police and get with the community. I don't know if it's the leaders, I don't know, because some community leaders will oppress the community, some churches will oppress community, so just be careful with that. Get to the council people, because you can hold them accountable, okay? And that's a way that they can help y'all talk to, you know, maybe you want to have a meeting with the prosecutor, say, hey, I'm scared, you scared, so we all got to sit down and have a conversation for everybody to put a face with a name, you know what I'm saying? Absolutely.
Yes, I can understand where you're coming from, because as a people, most black men are scared because they don't know how they're going to walk away from a stop. And, you know, it's just an innocent, you're walking while being black. And they stop you. And like in New York, we just, 3 days ago, we got a law passed, the Right to Know Act, where the police, if they stop you, if they're not after you for no reason, if you don't have a warrant, you're just walking the street, it's unlawful for them to stop you. And if they do stop you, you have to give them permission to search you. And if you walk away from that stop and there's no arrest, they have to give you their business card. And this is what I'm fighting with too. And then also the other thing, I'm trying to put a packet together, a no-reach packet, like when you stop by the police and you know you put your hands on the steering wheel, that all your information is going to be in a packet right there at your steering wheel where you just hand it over to them, so you don't have to go to your pocket, you don't have to reach for nothing, so they can't say that you were reaching. And I advise everybody, get a car camera in your car, so you know you can record things. It's bad that it's come to this, but We have to protect ourselves. And it's bad that us as people of color have to have a different conversation with our boys than, you know, the white people have with their sons. They don't fear that their sons is going to get shot down because they're stopped by the police. You know, they just tell their sons, look, don't do nothing wrong, and if the police stop you, just get in touch with me or whatever. But that doesn't always happen with us, with our children. And it's a shame. We should all have the same conversation with our children.
Let me just read this. AB 931, police use of force. This proposed CA legislation would be established that officers could only use legal force if no reasonable alternatives are available and there is intimate danger of death or serious bodily injury. So this bill keeps the people safe. It's supposed to build the trust in the community, hold law enforcement accountable to the community they charge without protecting. So that's what we're fighting for in Ohio, along with transparency.
All right, I think that you have a question as well?
Yes.
Oh, okay, all right.
She's the assistant director, she gets that.
Okay.
Thank you all for coming, first and foremost. For anyone who doesn't know in this room, I'm the assistant director of the Department of Cultural Center. So thank you for bringing that up, Ben, on the tension and the fear of approaching a police officer. And then thank you for providing ways that students in this room, especially students of color, in a college setting, most students are living in like this protected bubble. We don't realize that until we go back into like our hometown, whether that's Philadelphia, Maryland, Baltimore. Baltimore is America. New York. A lot of our students are from New York as well, having to code switch. But when they're in state college, I'm just going to speak about state college because most of the students we work with are here temporarily, but don't engage with police officers because of that fear and tension. So what I want to emphasize to the students, what Ms. Rice and Ms. Carr had said about being advocates, going and engaging with the police officers in your communities and talking to them so that they can know you, so that the first interactions are not when you're intoxicated, off campus, getting a party shut down, but actually engaging in conversation so that you can match a name to the face, right? So I want to highlight that again because I don't think that we are confident enough or trust ourselves to have that and articulate that to the police officers in this community, right? But as administrators on the other side, police officers in this community are pushing to know the students, so the students won't even get into the door because of their fear of police officer. So can you all provide us with some insights on how students can be advocates for change in the legal system, but also to connect and interact, empower them to connect and interact with the officers in this community so that we can build for a better community, especially in one that is hopefully increasing in diversity when it comes to race. But the engagements with officers haven't been very well in the bigger sense. So I don't know what I did, but you know, we had a recent, a couple years ago, a young woman was tased by a police officer, not understanding the dynamics of that situation, blaming the white officer, of course, after having the ability to use tasers after 3 days, and pointing basically like another, you know, that could have been a gun, and tasing that young woman. But because the fear of police officer, they automatically assume that it was in the wrong, right, on the officer side. So how do we have cordial relationships with police officers as students who are scholars in higher education and bringing that back to our communities?
I'm sorry. Do you have where they have meetings here in Pennsylvania? I know in New York we have once a month. You can go to the precinct in your area and meet and go to a board meeting. And this way you can meet the police officer, ask any question that you want to ask, and voice your concerns. We do have that in New York, and you know, a lot of people just don't show up. You know, but this would be a very good way to, because they're gonna know that you're coming. They're gonna know that you're concerned, and these police officers, now they're gonna know your face, so they'll be reluctant to do anything, you know, out of the ordinary to you. So I think that maybe we should push for that, even on the campus here. Maybe let's push for inviting police officers who's in the community, who's policing this area, and get them to know the students, you know, and have a conversation with them. I think that would be the first step.
They're willing to come. It's our students who aren't willing to engage with them.
It has to be you know,
right?
You got to get it together, because
Emphasize
at the end of the day, if something actually happens, you got to call the police, because you're going to need it. You may need it. You know, so get to know who's policing you.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
point of information, we have a meeting once a month, and we've had it for 2.5 years, Carlos knows about it, it's called Community and College United. Police officers, police chiefs, and their assistants from all around the area show up. Last time we had it, we had 40 people there, and there was not a single student.
And it was in the PRCC.
And it was in the PRCC.
Well, the police have not, you know, they don't have a good rep, and, you know, these are babies, you know what I'm saying, and the babies are scared, so I get it, but, also they have to know that they're powerful, and your words mean something, and one day that, you're gonna be able to vote these people out of office, so I would say hold them accountable. You know, get the police chief out there, like you said, and you have a council, what is it, the public safety person? I get them mixed up. Get both of them out here, and I think that one way you guys can engage is maybe do something for them. Do something for the children. They just show up empty-handed. They didn't, trust me, they're making enough money around here to give out $100 gift card, say just come on and join, okay? Trust me. They can come on and meet us or something, to figure $25 gift card to Target or whatever. They have to give them something, you know, they're not just gonna come out, they have to be able to feel comfortable, you know what I'm saying? It's about being comfortable, and we is good at making them uncomfortable, so they have to make us feel comfortable, for we want to make them uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? So I would think something like that might work, and then you might get a whole bunch of people out. You say you're giving away $25 gift cards, you have a whole room full of people, but make sure that they interact, you know, with the police and get to know the police that's in this community. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, remember, we're paying your salary.
Exactly.
So get something
Get
for your
something.
money.
Yeah, get something out of them.
So
Yeah.
and we need them to know who we are and to respect us. We have to respect them, but they have to learn to respect us also.
Yeah, and we ain't saying every month, once a year. What's wrong with giving out $25, $20, whatever? What the kids like to eat, the McDonald's and give them something, you know, $10 gift card. They will come out, trust me. Yeah. I'm always doing something.
We're gonna wrap it up. I just want to say a couple of things. One of the points that was made was that a lot of people don't show up.
Yeah.
And I just want to hammer on this point, because this is the thing. There are people in this society that's hoping you're not going to show up, so they can keep things the way they are. So we have to show up, and we have to show up. Yes, we have to vote, but voting alone is not going to solve our problems. So we got to show up on the voting day, and we're going to have to show up on some other days. If you really want change, you have to show up. And then the last thing, I want to get to two other things. One was the brother who said, how do we not act out of fear? And I hope I'm going to address some of that. And then the other one was your question about the racial disparities, really. And Andrew touched on this a little bit in terms of the policing. Once you had the so-called crack cocaine explosion, there was a certain type of militarized policing that was concentrated in black communities. this is how we end up with such high numbers of black folks in the prison system. It's not because black people commit more crimes. Andrew's telling you how the policing is concentrated in these communities, and that's what's happening. I mean, so we need people to study and understand this. And to me, that's one of the ways to move past the fear. Study the activists who are not just the ones on TV, not just the ones who are on CNN giving a soundbite. Study people who are having an impact in these communities. One example I give people in terms of the policing issue, there's a young woman out of Oakland named Derica Blackman. You can Google this. This was less than a week after Oscar Grant was killed. They have mobilized an entire community of people. If you look at this video, you see the room is full of folks from the city. They've organized an action plan. And she lays this plan out in less than 3 minutes. So look for activists like that. Look for activists like Melina Abdullah, who's in LA with Black Lives Matter. People like Tefpo with Hands Up United in Ferguson. And Rebel Diaz, they were very active and have been active. And many others. Jasiri X in Pittsburgh, here in your state of Pennsylvania. They were out front in that movement around Anton Rose. Right? And they were able to hold that officer accountable so far, but this is the same thing. If people don't keep showing up, it's going to just slip under the rug, and that's what they expecting you to not show up. So I just want to just emphasize that. And so in terms of this disproportionate policing and targeting certain communities, I mean, this is how we end up with these incidents of violence happening mostly to black people. And we have these incidents of black folk end up in these prison systems. And it's not because black people are committing more crime or they're out of control. So I think we got to be informed and to recognize that there is media messaging that's not in our best interest. And some of that media messaging that I'm hearing is wanting people to be afraid. And I don't move afraid. I just don't, because I feel like there are certain things that happen in this culture, in this society, and we know the society is going to do what it's going to do, and the systems are going to do what they're going to do. But that don't mean that we move in fear. And I just wanted to just say that. So, Brother Carlos, thanks for having us again. Thanks to the panel.
One, to their point, well, first, I got an announcement, one announcement. Our next program is November 8th. It's the Stoop. It's our 10th anniversary. If you don't know what the Stoop is, it's a student showcase. We're going to feature some DJs. We're going to have it a little bit different. We'll have a little extra time at the end for y'all to have a good time and party. Because it is the 10th anniversary. Second, I am working with all of the police departments in State College that you engage with. So, because we have four different police departments that our students engage with, we have State College Police, University Police, Ferguson Township, Patton Township, and the Sheriff. So we have 5 actually. We're working on doing a program. One, know your rights. Okay? So part of that program is done by a police officer and a lawyer to talk to you about what your rights are and what you have and what the police officers understand to be your rights and what they know to be your rights, but you don't know. And so the things that you do causes them to respond in a certain way. But the second part of that event is that I am encouraging, I'm trying to meet with all of the chiefs to talk about this, that they are encouraging their officers to come for the exact reason of us getting to know them. You know, last week we had 2 weeks ago, last weekend, last Thursday, we had a pep rally. Was it 2 weeks or last week? I can't remember. It's all running together. For the pep rally, I know some of y'all were there, and I'm sure you noticed the police officer walking around. Right? Little short, black woman. Every time you see her, you need to go introduce yourself to her. She is the first black female police officer in this community. You should know who she is. One, in the community. One, because she's the first black woman. Two, because she's an alum of Penn State. She went to school here with y'all, with some of y'all. So you should know who she is, because she can help you engage with other police officers. They are human beings. I'm black. I'm a black male. I have those fears as well. But I alleviate a lot of those fears because I know a lot of those police officers. Well, two out of the 5 are in my phone. Well, we don't have a lot of.
Does not have faith in the police chief, and they all voted on that. So we're at our GP meeting on Thursday at 6 o'clock at 108 Wartip. We're discussing that, and we're working about having. Well, you guys are already planning an event, but we're working on bridging the gap with the university.
The more the merrier.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, so if you want to learn more about that, come to our GP meeting on Thursday, 6 o'clock, 108 Wartip.
Thank you all. Have a good night. Make sure you drop your assessments off. Catherine is collecting them on that side, in the back. Drop them off on the table. Thank you all very much.